You broke the news of what the NBA All-Star Game's rating was. It was immediately folded into a rant by Stephen A. Smith about the state of the sport. This is becoming an annual event right now for the NBA. They have All-Star Weekend followed by a reckoning with what the sport is. It's spiritual decline, if not tangible decline. I got to say, Ryan, you can give us the number. The number was a little better than I thought it would be. I think the vibes were worse than the number. That's my take.
Well, here's the thing. The numbers are going to be better because they did a new Nielsen update. They like keep adding to this out of home pot. It wasn't like, it's been like a bonanza for the networks in terms of, and the leagues in terms of how they promote their numbers. The advertisers, you would think, have to be like hip to it and have to be able to figure out apples to apples comparisons on their own, because it's not as though they thought that like every viewer before Nielsen was doing this was watching by themselves in their house. And so I think that they had this stuff baked in for years, but the numbers just keep going up and up and up.
Wait, Ryan, you're telling me that you don't think the last Super Bowl blowout between the Chiefs and Eagles that nobody I knew was all that excited for, you don't think that was literally the most watched Super Bowl of all time? Is that what you're telling me?
Thing where they like promoted like Kendrick Lamar as like the most watched Super Bowl halftime of all time, but the halftime is like usually the peak, and this time halftime was down from the peak. And so there was like some interesting like massaging of numbers, and there is all the time. Like, I'm not blaming Fox or anything. Like, Nielsen gave them the highest number ever. You say that's a record, but it, like, I mean, when you, that's the thing is like the NBA All-Star Game though, it would have been like, it probably wouldn't have even been down if that SNL 50 wasn't on. Like, that was just like one more last little middle finger from Mark Lazarus to TNT. Lazarus was a TNT executive. Now he is an NBC executive. He was a big part of the charge of NBC's monster offer to bring back the NBA, which costs TNT. And now he put this like SNL, or like the company put this SNL 50 date up right smack dab against the NBA All-Star Game. So that was a nice subplot.
One second, forgive me if you did mention the number. I'm still recovering from my lack of cardio and having gone on a run and the oxygen not going to my brain. What was the number again? The number for the
15 million watched the SNL 50, and then there were
for the NBA All-Star Game.
No, NBC, and it was under 5 million for the NBA All-Star Game, but there were 15 million people watching SNL 50. There's only so many people that are watching TV, and when like such a big bucket of them goes to competing programming, your numbers are likely going to be down. Like, anytime you air anything up against something on TV with 15 million viewers at the same time, it's going to be an uphill battle.
This is straining credulity to me. I didn't know that we would immediately lurch into ratings trutherism, but here we are. There's no way, man. There's no way that 15 million in the classic sense watched the SNL extravaganza. I saw it was buzzy, but that's an old school NBA Finals game right there on, what was the Sunday night, was it? I believe. And I saw some cool clips of it online, but I just look at that, I go, there's no way. And there's no way that happens simultaneous with the NBA getting that 5
Plus,
mil.
there was another 6 million watching the Daytona 500 because that got like a rain delayed into prime time. So it was like between those three events, they're saying it was like 26 million viewers. So it was a competitive. I don't think there are too many people who are deciding between the NBA All-Star Game and NASCAR, but I do think that there is like definitely a component of several million people who are choosing between the All-Star Game and that SNL 50.
I would have to assume so, but we've been covering this for a while, all these record numbers, yet nobody actually thinks more people are watching television than they used to. We see that. That's the Unless I'm missing it, you don't see those trend pieces
You
that
know,
more people are watching
I would love
television.
to see Nielsen ratings for how many people are watching YouTube on their TV at one moment and how many people are watching Netflix on their TV at one moment. Like,
Yeah.
it's got to be like 30 million concurrents on Netflix, right? On Sunday night.
Yeah. It's just, it strains credulity. They've juiced the numbers. They have a lot of latitude in how they juice those numbers. I remember when one of the broadcasters recently had a Super Bowl where they counted the streaming viewership as twice that as the broadcaster before. I believe it was NBC. And then their explanation was, well, when we see somebody streaming, we give that a 2 because 2 people could be watching, and everybody just runs with it. Variety, all these trade publications, they just run with this increase, and there's not a lot of check on it. I guess advertisers are the only ones who really care about the numbers at root, but it's just become like grade inflation. It is just viewership inflation all over the place during an era, ironically, where people watch less TV than ever because they have all these alternative options. So even in a time where it really seems that sports are less important to people and television shows less important to people, 10 years ago, Ryan, we didn't have all these YouTube things that we could watch. We had some, not like today. And yet the numbers are going the other direction. I don't know at what point there's a correction or this is just making everybody happy, like increasing the pace of play in the
correction is
NBA.
when they stop adding the new out of home numbers, right? And then we can just judge apples to apples for perpetuity. But it's a very odd thing. And like, I don't know. We're never going to make sense of it. We've been talking about this for like 5 years.
Well, let's explain it a bit before moving on, because this might be clipped to YouTube. You know, loyal listeners of ours will know exactly what we're talking about, but not everybody knows. They just see these headlines that viewership up, and they're going, why did the viewership go up for Chiefs Eagles blowout? It doesn't make sense. There can't be that many Chiefs haters out there. Not that many people who wanted to see them turn the camera to the Taylor Swift booth in case she was crying. Not enough of those people out there. It's that Nielsen effectively was bullied by the broadcasters in including out-of-home viewership. Back in the day, they just used people in their houses. And you could say using people, metrics that cover people in sports bars and everywhere else, that's the right way to do it. But you're then doing it over this old baseline and acting like everybody got taller. It's like the NFL goes from measuring everybody's height to everybody in helmet. You could argue that that's how tall they are when they're out there on the field, but you can't act like everybody just grew 6 inches overnight. That's not reality. And that's effectively what happened. They have weird ways to measure this too. You might be wondering, there are people literally with little devices on their person that hear what channel that they're in proximity to, and it gets counted towards the numbers. So it's very strange, but there's not much incentive to question these things, especially when people who cover these leagues, they act as cheerleaders for the leagues they cover often, and they love running into social media. And
that was like a weird way of how I broke those ratings, because I actually didn't totally realize that I was like breaking the news when I was. I got a message from somebody that was like, these are the numbers. And it was somebody that I believed to be like, A, have access to them, and B, be telling me the truth. And so I tweeted them. And then there was no like NBA press release about the ratings. Like, it's very strange to have an all-star game where the NBA doesn't send a press release about the ratings, but there wasn't like an official one. And if there like had been an official one, then maybe one of those like alleged NBA cheerleaders would have been the one to break it, or maybe it would have come out through the NBA announcement or a TNT announcement. But because there was no announcement, I was like able to break the news. I don't like nobody almost cares, but it did like get me like mentioned on the Stephen A. Smith show. So,
well, our listeners care, and it's interesting that in an era of ratings juicing, the NBA can't really come to us and say that we've elevated. I mean, we've covered this before, that it's a situation where they've signed this lavish new TV deal but it's like twice the money, but half the viewership. Or they would say 3 times the money